Namaste, welcome. My name is Mandi J. Nelson and I'm the author of Awakening My Spiritual Heart. It's an honour and a privilege to share this time and space with you, this moment in time for us to both find each other in this present moment, right here, right now, across all space, time and dimensions. So I thank you for being here. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about some of the information that I discuss in my book, Awakening My Spiritual Heart. It was just released in 2019. Took a lot of courage to release the book, and I'm really happy to be sharing it with people and hearing their feedback, and so many people are getting so much from reading the book, and I'm very thankful for that. As a spin-off of that, or actually prior to that, I've been doing one-on-one work with people for quite some time. It seems now that a lot of the work that I'm doing since the release of the book is really working with people to transcend their own stories. For those of you that haven't read my book yet, you can get a copy on my website, www.mandijnelson.com. And in it is a series of stories, minuets if you like. And these little stories are interwoven through the sutras of yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga. You don't need to be a practicing yogi in order to get anything from the book. These stories are ones that many of us will relate to. If you haven't experienced them directly in your life, you would know someone that has. And I'm trying to bring that ancient yogic philosophy into the modern Western yogi, into the modern Western world, pretty much. So the very first story, the book kind of drags you in right from the very start and grabs you by the curlies, if you like, and yeah, you're right there and you're right with me. And that very first story is speaking about addictions and drug addiction. And I live in Perth, Western Australia, and there's quite prevalent methamphetamine use here, and a lot of, as I'm sure there is worldwide. So a lot of my work as of late has been dealing in the addiction realm. And I wanted to speak, or to create a video that actually speaks to addiction. So it doesn't need to be a drug addiction. It could be food, sex, alcohol, whatever else you are addicted to. Maybe it's attention. Maybe it's addicted to being a victim. Basically, my work is about transcending our stories. So, you know, I guess the first part, when we want to transcend a story, is we need to go back and look at it, and look when that story was first created, when that story first happened, and then have a look at perhaps what are the roots of this story. So in that I mean, is there somehow that we can claim responsibility for that story? So as an example, I'll bring up that numerous people I speak to in relation to their drug addictions, and I'm talking about drug addictions because in this particular week, that's what I've been dealing with clients with. So many of them are saying, yeah, well, that wasn't me. I didn't actually do that. I wasn't responsible for beginning my drug use. That was my girlfriend, or that was my boyfriend, or whatever. So at the very first instance, we need to go back and accept responsibility, because unless someone actually tied you down and held a gun to your head, you are responsible for the choice. We all make a choice in every single moment of each and every day upon this amazing planet that we are blessed to be having a spiritual journey upon. We're making choices. And those choices always come back down to the law of two. So you may not be aware of the law of two. And if you have a look to nature, wherever you are, and I'm blessed to be in John's beautiful tipi up in Gidgegannup, and I'm gazing out over a beautiful blue sky and a golden paddock with trees around me. You know, so I'm looking around and I can see that as I look to nature, that some of what I see is dying and some of what I see is growing. And this is the universal law of two, that everything is either growing or dying. Everything is either growing or dying. So therefore, in our own lives, if we bring this universal law of nature into our own lives, what we recognize is with each choice that we are given throughout the day, that we have a choice. We can choose to grow ourselves, or our choices will diminish us. So for example, let's just take a really easy example on that one. I'm in a cafe and I'm going to order a drink. Okay, so I have a look at their menu and I can choose to drink. I can choose some water, some very fresh water. I don't mean water from the tap, I mean bottled water. I could choose to drink bottled water, or I could choose to drink Coke. Now, which out of the two of those is going to grow me and which is going to diminish me? It's fairly easy, really. So it's each of those decisions that we come to, like what music will I listen to today? Shall I listen to some heavy metal, or shall I listen to some mantra or some opera? Or it's fairly simple. I think you're kind of getting a gist. Food, okay, breakfast is coming. Now I could have a delicious smoothie made of fresh fruit, maybe some cacao, which is my favorite. Perhaps put some greenery in there as well, and whatever other healthy powders, maybe like maca or reishi mushrooms or something like that. Or I could choose to have a sugared cereal. So out of each of those examples that I've demonstrated for you, there was a clear choice of what would grow you, or what would grow me, and what would diminish me. So this is exactly the same for you. Every single choice will either grow or diminish you. So getting back to our example of transcending these stories. So let's say that I am coming off methamphetamine, or I'm trying to break my sex addiction, or I'm trying to break whatever other food addiction, whatever other addiction. Actually, social media is a really good one. Let's say that I'm trying to break that. Okay, so I've created some space between myself and my drug of choice, whatever that is. Okay, so you need to extricate yourself, and then you can start looking and unwinding what got you there in the first place. So the first is you need to accept responsibility. And this is a very big part of our transcending any story that keeps you stuck and is keeping you bound to particular ways of being. So we've got to be able to turn around right at the very beginning of those stories and to accept and really truly embody the fact that we had a choice, and we made a choice. We made the choice to diminish ourselves rather than grow. We made a choice to repeat the same patterning, the same behavior. So we need to be able to turn that around, and then particularly, you know, sometimes some of these choices, some of these reasons that we chose to delve and dive deeply into addictions covers or masks or band-aids some truly disastrous and very, very challenging things for us to overcome as humans. And not all the time did we have a choice in that matter. And I speak at this point, you know, to those that have suffered atrocities as children, maybe through wars, women or men through rapes and things like this, but we still need to be able to turn it around and draw the gift from each and every experience. So maybe for a woman that has been raped, and I have been raped, this is within my experiences, and I would say that it actually did contribute to my drug and alcohol use, just pure escapism really, and not wanting to look at it, not wanting to face it. And we really need to, from the moment you can turn that around and you can accept what it is that you've learnt. So for me in that scenario, I learnt that I was more than my body, that I was more than my mind, and that I could take myself beyond the struggle, okay? I existed beyond this physical body, and I existed beyond the mind, and I could completely surrender. I could practice Ishvara Pranidhana. And, you know, it also taught me strength and resilience and courage that I had no real idea of the capacity that I had for these qualities. So I'm not suggesting, you know, that we need to go out and be perpetrators or victims, or we need, you know, I'm not encouraging atrocious actions. I'm merely saying that if this is part of our experience, a part of our natural experience upon the planet, as part of our spiritual journey upon the planet, then the moment that we are able to transcend these stories, that we are able to draw the rich and rewarding gifts, then that removes us from being a victim. And once we remove ourselves from being the victim, it no longer has control subconsciously on the way that our life is unfolding. We empower ourselves at that point. So we can go back to that first time that we started that habit that became an addiction, whatever it was, alcohol, drugs, sex. You know what I'm talking about here. You know what your particular addiction is. And there are positive addictions too. I mean, like, I was addicted to hot yoga for years. Whilst my mum was dying, it got me through it. So, and, you know, there are definitely positive addictions, but I'm talking about the ones here that are keeping us bound and have negative consequences upon our life. So at that point that we can glean the richness, the gold, if you like, we can glean the gold out of, or the lotus flower can grow out of the mud, or whatever analogy, whatever pictorial imagination, visual imagination is going to work for you here. That moment, the light bulb turns on. And from that moment, the story no longer has control over us. Okay. So this can be a key to helping us really maintaining that distance away from the drug. Okay. The other thing is, particularly when you're in the early stages of releasing your addiction, and you will find that I'm occasionally going back to drugs because that's what I've been dealing with in this last week, as I explained earlier. So just reinsert whatever it is that you need for your own purposes. So you're creating that space, and you're reframing it for yourself, which is what we did by talking about how to look at what happened to create this scenario where you needed to mask something, where you needed to escape something. So something had happened that had created feelings of shame or guilt or low self-esteem within you. So creating the situation where you needed something to make you feel better. you know, you couldn't find that within, because within was all festering. So in the early stages, what is possibly a good thing for you to try is by shifting the energy. So, you know, what happens when the story comes up and you're starting to feel all guilty, or stuff that you've done while you're on the drugs, or while you were in the throes of your addiction, and they're making you feel shameful or guilty, or any other number of experiences that the mind is leading you to, which is trying to get you to go back to that which you've just released. So you can try using Ho'oponopono, which, if you haven't heard of that before, it's repeating the 4 statements. It's an ancient Hawaiian practice, and I will put up along here how to spell Ho'oponopono so that you can do some more research if you like. And it really shifts and clears energy for you. So it's basically you put on repeat. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you. I think you're getting the gist. So you would utilize that to try to create space, to shift the energy. And I'll give you an example of that. There was a Good Friday that I woke up and I was in a really, really deep and dark depression. And there was no reason for it. You know, I'd gone to bed the night before and I felt really good. Everything was going really well in my life. It was when I was in my 10-year experiment. So I hadn't been drinking any alcohol or taking any drugs, and was really dedicated, as I still am, to my practice. And so I was in a black, deep, dark depression. And those of you that suffer from depression, or perhaps have had extended drug use or other addictions, will know what I mean when I'm talking about this really dark space. It's so dark you can't see the light. And I was just thinking, I can't get out of bed today. I'm just going to have to stay in bed. And so it popped in. I know, do Ho'oponopono. So I had those 4 statements. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you, running through my head repetitively. For about 5 or 10 minutes, that was all that it took. And the energy was cleared. I was no longer depressed. I was able to get out of bed, and I was just like, I was blown away by the capacity of those 4 statements. At its very heart, it's requiring that we take full 100% responsibility for whatever shows up in our life. So this means if you're watching TV or you're reading the newspaper and maybe you read about an aeroplane crash or whatever other tragedy that has been reported by our popular media, then you repeat, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, I love you, because you're accepting responsibility for absolutely everything that shows up in your reality. So that is one way that you can try to shift the energy. You know, that voice in your head is going to keep winding you back to do the addictive behavior. It doesn't want you to break out of your mold. It wants to keep you in that mold, okay? So the second thing you could try, and it doesn't have to be in this order either, try out all of these and see which one fits for you best. And even if one doesn't work, then try it again some other time, is Valona Breathing. And on the front page of my website, there's, I think it's about a 15-minute video, and it's called Valona Breathing. My website is www.mandijnelson.com. Essentially, at the very heart of Valona Breathing is that we are breathing against the natural rhythm of the breath. So you are creating a longer exhalation than the inhalation, which is invoking the parasympathetic nervous system. So often when we are having these negative emotions, it's all coming up and we're feeling like we need whatever it is that we have been using, we're used to using in order to mask these feelings, right? We're used to band-aiding it. We're used to grabbing something to like, quick, quick, quick. So it's an anxious, it's a fear-driven response. So we need to create relaxation. And the way that we do that is by breathing against the natural rhythm of the breath, which will invoke more of this relaxation response from the physical body. So that's on the front page of my website, www.mandijnelson.com. It is an amazing practice. I wish that children were taught it in schools, and I'm excited to say that it is being taught to some children in schools now. So yeah, I mean, it's a life skill just to have in your toolkit. So at that point, you want to be bringing it back into the present moment, okay? Because you can't do anything to fix what it is that happened in the past. I'll repeat that again. You can't do anything to fix what has happened in the past. You can, when you're ready in your path of recovery, make amends. So you can apologize, but you can't change what has already happened. You can accept responsibility for it. We can only dream to what the future is going to be. Okay, we can set intentions and we can manifest our future in the way that we want it to be. All we really have, truly, is this moment right here, right now. So how do we bring everything back to the present moment? Well, at first you have to be aware of your thoughts, and you have to be aware that you are not your mind, and that you are not this body, that you exist beyond, that you are boundless and unbroken and undying. So this is just an experience that you're having here upon this planet, in this physical body. It's a spiritual experience. And the mind creates ideologies as to whether something is a good experience or a bad experience. But at the end of the day, they're just all experiences. And for many of us that have had addictions of whatever sort, it's basically like there was a fork in the road, and we took the fork where it was a dead end, and we just kept going down. You know, not only was it a dead end, but it was a ditch. We kept going down into that ditch. It was like there was quicksand, but that is taking the responsibility away from us. We actually dug ourselves down, and we kept digging, and we kept digging, and we kept digging, until finally we decided, oh, hold on, it's actually really dark down here, and I really don't like it down here, and it's a bit scary, and yeah, I don't like it down here anymore. It's not working for me anymore. I don't feel any good. I can't look at myself in the mirror anymore, and I don't like what I see, and I don't like what I've done. And as a matter of fact, there's nothing within me anymore that I actually even really like anymore. So what's actually going on here? And at that point, things get really scary. And it's at that point that we often start to make the change. Something reaches out to us, and probably at this stage many people have tried to reach out and help. There is a glimmer of hope, there is a glimmer of light, something within us, and I call this our awakening spiritual heart, sees this light and has just absolutely had enough, and knows, like for me with my own addiction journey, I just knew that, like when I stopped using speed, I just knew that if I didn't stop at that point, then I was going to have to turn to prostitution or crime, and I didn't want to do either. With my alcohol, and I won't necessarily call that addiction, but it was definitely the way that I escaped reality, and it wasn't healthy. It wasn't a healthy choice. It was, you know, I was the classic binge drinker, let's go have fun, woo, you know. But I was masking a lot, and I was hiding a lot, and most of what I was hiding was being who I truly am. And so with that as well, you know, I knew that I had to make a choice, and I knew that things had to stop, because I knew that if I didn't, on the path that I was on, you know, I was going to end up drunk in some on some roadside or something. You know, it wasn't growing me at all. It was diminishing me. You know, I was just overdoing exactly the same thing, weekend in, weekend out. I wasn't a daily drinker, so it wasn't a day in, day out kind of thing. I was, as many people are here in Australia, a very good binge drinker, a party girl, yeah. So at some point, there, for all of us that have transcended our stories and our addictions, there is a glimmer. There is something that breaks the fabric of your reality and allows you to shift out just a little bit further, rather than being in the constricted and the contracted space of repeating behavior that is not positive for you. Something allows a little bit of a rip in the fabric, and as a result of that, the light starts to shine through, and there's a tiny spark within you, your awakening spiritual heart, the connection to the divine, that encourages you to start climbing out of that ditch. Okay, and we start climbing out, and as it comes in for us, okay, I'm feeling like using again, because you start to take responsibility. You get flashes of what you've done, because you're no longer masking. You're no longer masking what it was that kept blocking you from fully accepting responsibility from what you were doing. So other ways that we might look at really nurturing ourselves is you need to show up for yourself daily. I always, whenever I'm talking to people about this, I just say, you know, show up for yourself every single day. So if you truly believe that you are a spiritual being having a human experience within this physical body, and that the mind is a tool that you can utilize, as is this physical body, then I will ask you, how much time are you dedicating daily to your spiritual practice? And oftentimes, you know, people say, yeah, I agree with that, I agree with that. And when I ask them, how much time are you spending dedicating to your spiritual practice, all of a sudden they're a bit like, oh, yeah, well, if you put it like that, I'm not actually spending any time at all. And, you know, even for me, a lot of the time I'm just doing Band-Aid practice. And by Band-Aid practice, I mean, like, you know, I'm practicing maybe 30 minutes a day. There have been many times over the whole course of me really dedicating my life to my spiritual practices that I've had the time and opportunity, because I've made it a priority, and that's what we really need to do, where I have spent way more than half an hour, and presently, you know, I'm spending at least an hour, sometimes up to an hour and a half every day, and I'm noticing the difference in my life, because I'm showing up for myself in a really big way. Before I go out and do anything for anyone else, I'm showing up for me. So this is utilizing the tapas, our discipline, our internal fire, and dedicating it to our spiritual growth. And the beautiful thing is, once we start showing up for ourselves, the spirit, you know, that it wasn't so much a healthy or clean environment for it to hang out in, particularly if you're using methamphetamine or some other drug or alcohol, whatever it is that was keeping your vibration low, that spirit tends to drop in more and more and more, and you'll notice more and more synchronicities happening in your life. You will be more aware to it, more awake to it, more synchronicities will happen, and your connection to your spiritual self, divine guidance, will get stronger and stronger and stronger. Without a doubt, this has been my experience. Absolutely. The last 10 years where I decided October the 19th, 2009, right, that's it. I'm going to set myself a 10-year experiment, which hasn't finished, by the way. Well, it did complete. It was a 10-year experiment that I set myself. But it hasn't completed. Like, I'm still not drinking alcohol. Excuse me. I still don't take drugs. Because my reality that I've created is just incredible. It's just this beautiful, magical unfolding, led by spirit, led by my awakening spiritual heart, my Hirodhyaya. It's amazing. It is led by my intuition, or by my higher self, or by God inspiration, whatever you want to call it. You know, that is what leads me. It's no longer a compulsion anymore. It's no longer habitual behavior, although my yoga is definitely very habitual, but I feel that it's a positive. My spiritual practices are very positive, and we need those in order to show up for ourselves daily. So the other thing that you could be doing is allow your higher self, okay, your bigger self, your adult, your spirit self, whatever fits for you, to speak to your little self, okay? So the child, speak to the child, give the child what it needs, journal this, talk to the child, find out what's going on for the child. If the child needs love, give the child love. I feel like maybe I'll do another video on that at some point in time. And the other thing is to keep you in the present moment and to keep you showing up for yourself daily is to set the intention as an underlying intention for your whole life, just to be the very best version of you. For many of us that have gone down the addiction path, we haven't necessarily been the best version of ourselves that we could possibly be. In fact, many of us have been the very worst version of ourselves that we could possibly be. So, coming back to where we very began, choosing to grow or die, making choices that grow us, expand us rather than contract us, making choices that are positive choices that are really going to allow us to be the very best version of ourselves that we possibly can. The most absolutely beautiful thing that happens as a result of that is you will find yourself on a path of purification, because if it simply happens that way, because if you are trying to be the very best version of you possibly can be, you will notice things just drop away. So you don't choose that Coke, you don't choose that McDonald's burger, so you don't you choose a healthy salad instead, or I'm sure you can think of 101 things that you wouldn't choose. You don't choose to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning very often, because you know that your body needs at least 8 or 9 hours sleep, or however much your particular body needs. You choose to show up for yourself first thing in the morning. And this sets your intention for the whole day. Okay, I'm here, I'm present. I've shown up for me. And I'm open to whatever unfolds for me. So that's probably about all I want to cover today. I've covered quite a bit there, and I hope that if you're finding yourself somewhere in the throes of transcending addictions and turning around stories for yourself, that in amongst what I have discussed today, you have gleaned some tools that you can utilize to assist you to do this. I do one-on-one work in this amazing tipi that you can kind of maybe see that I'm in. I might just show you a bit up there. This is the door. It's the roof. This is the teepee. It's amazing. So yeah, I do one-on work in here, and I also can do one-on work by Skype or Facebook Messenger. So really open to helping others transcend their stories and become the best version of themselves they possibly can, and to awaken to their own spiritual heart. So it has been an honor and a privilege to meet you here at in this space, and I have so much love and gratitude, and I just hope that you continue to choose to grow rather than die. Well, we'll all die at some point, but I think you get what I mean. Namaste. Thanking you with love.